putting a lesson together, you kind of want to follow some sense of structure, some sense of organization, some sense of the topic on the lesson and making sure you got things that kind of flow in order and things like that. And then sometimes when you look back at it, you wonder, well, have I got any structure to it at all, or is it just thoughts, okay? Well, I'm not sure on this one tonight. I'm not sure whether it's a topic lesson or whether it's a series of thoughts, okay? So we'll just have to see how this flows tonight, okay? You know, when we stop and think about it in life, there's a lot of things that we control. But very often we focus on the things that we have no control over, and they become concerns, they become worry, they become frustrations for us, don't they? The things that we can't control. But yet we need to stop and think about it, especially in lieu of the Bible. We find there's a lot of things that we do control, isn't there? You know, one of the things that we control is our attitude, isn't it? We control that. Nobody dictates our attitude to us, but where the water gets muddied a lot of times, we're waiting for somebody to do something or an action somewhere to dictate how we feel. Well, that's up to us. That's up to us. There are stories being told during World War II, during the concentrations in Austria and in Poland, in those concentration camps. What little food there would be people taking their little crumbs and giving it to other people that were in more need. Now, did Germany control that, or did their attitude and actions control that? They controlled that, didn't they? What about our words? Well, we control that, don't we? We control that. What about our salvation? Who controls that? We actually control that, don't we? God has given us the plan. He's given us the program. He's given us His book for us to look into. So we're in control of that. And there's a lot of other things that we're in control of, too, in this life. I remember my mom and my daddy who grew up during the Depression, right after the Depression, during the Dust Bowl era, at that time, and I used to remember my daddy said, you don't hear men whistling or singing anymore while they're working. Back during the Depression and during the Dust Bowl era, people would be out working and they'd be whistling or singing. And Mama used to say when you went by someone's house, the women would be there, and they would be singing while they were cooking and washing and things of that nature. They were what? They were happy. And you say, well, how can you be happy in that state? Well, you know, a lot of times the things that make us happy are things that we have to be without and trust in the Lord. Then we realize how blessed we are with a little morsel of food or some clothes to wash. That's why they were happy. They had to trust in the Lord, didn't they? Well, you know, we all overall, and I say all that to say this about the first slide here on the overhead. I'm in charge of how I feel, and today I'm choosing happiness. It's a choice, isn't it? It's a choice that we make. And so the thoughts tonight on this Bible study has to do with the thought of happiness. Happiness. And we're going to look at some Bible things about happiness, both happiness of the wicked and happiness of the Christian, and just see what the Bible has to say about these things. That's a whole lot. By no means is this exhaustive, okay? These are just some thoughts put together. I have my Nave's Topical Bible with me. If you open it up under happiness, you're going to find there's like, so it would take several hours, maybe even several days to go through all the thoughts. So this is just going to be some thoughts on the subject of happiness. You know, one of the first things we want to do is kind of take a look at the definition of happiness, okay? It would be real easy for the Townsend family to define happiness for us. You know what that word would be? Jeremy's home. Now, that's a good thought, isn't it? But that would be one way, and you're going to see how that thought fits in with this definition, okay? It's a state of well-being and contentment, okay? And the lesson's not about contentment and well-being tonight, but we know contentment Godliness and contentment is great gain, isn't it? To be happy, to be satisfied, to be relaxed at who you are, or maybe what you have obtained in life. You know, sometimes the thought goes, maybe we're not progressing in life because we haven't taken the time to be thankful and thoughtful and content with those things that we have, okay? And so that's just some thoughts on that. How about a pleasurable or satisfying experience? There's things that make us happy because we experience it, don't we? It's satisfying to us. It makes us rejoice in what we've experienced or what pleasure we have taken in. You know, maybe happiness would be, I've always wanted to go see maybe the Smoky Mountains, and you stand there and look out at the beauty and grandeur. It makes you so peaceful and so happy, right? That is there, that it exists, that you got opportunity to do that. And it'll stay with you, won't it? Maybe sometimes in moments of darkness and negative thoughts, we have to all of a sudden put our mind in gear and think about looking out over the Smoky Mountains at the beauty and grandeur. And that has a tendency to do what? To lift us up. Kind of like Paul told the church at Philippi in Philippians chapter 4, on those good things think, right? That puts us in charge of our thoughts, of our happiness. You know, we find that true happiness is in this thought here. Be happy in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Be happy in the Lord. He will give you the desires of your heart. I know the first thing you run into a lot of times when you hear that verse or think of that verse is, man, my heart desires a Cadillac. Man, my heart desires a 2-story home on the lake overlooking whatever. Is that what he's talking about here? Or is he talking about the desires being fulfilled of the spiritual things? That's what he's talking about, is the spiritual value, the treasures that you lay up in heaven, the peace that you can have here knowing you're a child of God, and that you can rest at night. And we're going to see a couple of characters in the Bible that, you know, actually fulfill this, okay? And they were in a bad state, okay? They were in a bad situation on this, but they were happy. Matter of fact, not only were they happy, they were singing. Remember we talked about people singing and whistling and things like that in bad times and in bad conditions and bad states? You know, we live in a pretty... we live in a very, not pretty prosperous, but a very prosperous country, don't we? And you stop and think about that, about when's the last time you heard somebody singing while they were working? You know? Or whistling while they were working, or maybe just, you know, they working there and maybe they carried on some kind of rhythm, you know, with their fingers or something. It's something to stop and think about, isn't it? About being happy and the choice that we can make being happy. Any of you brethren, I'm not trying to do this preaching, I'm trying to turn that switch off and turn on a topical Bible lesson class, so I may get a little out of hand. So, any of you brethren have anything about that? Any examples that you can think of about happiness or something that maybe your grandparents told you, or your parents told you that had went on, some event in their life or in your life? A happy heart is good medicine. That is a very good thought, isn't it? I've got a copy of his book, and his name won't come to me right now, but he's very well known in the Brotherhood. And that book is titled A Happy Heart Better Than Medicine. And it's strictly filled with Bible verses about having a happy heart and how it is good medicine for the body physically, but also how a happy heart is good for the body spiritually, okay? And his name won't come to me if I mention it. Most of you recognize it. Some of you probably got his books too, but it's a very good book. We've used it for the basis of numerous preaching sermons down through the years about the merits of a heart, okay? And it makes you wonder, though, and this didn't come from his thought. This came from another arena, but a happy heart is good medicine. And makes you wonder if maybe the author wasn't thinking about Proverbs chapter 15, verses 13 and verse 15. And let's turn over there and take a look at that. Proverbs 15, I'm sorry. Beginning at verse 13. A merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance. A merry heart makes a cheerful countenance, and we know that our countenance has to do with our expression on our face in general, but it also could encompass our whole body language, couldn't it? The expression on our face, the way we're carrying ourselves, the step in our walk, but generally it talks about the expression on our face. You know, you can usually tell, and nobody doesn't have to tell you when a person's happy, can't you? Just like you can tell when a person is sad, can't you? Don't anybody have to tell you that. You can just about look at them and tell, can't you? So this merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance. But by the same token, and we're going to be talking about the happiness of the wicked here in just a little bit, but by sorrow of the heart, the spirit is broken. You know, it's a true saying. There's been many a person die from what? A broken heart, hasn't it? You can be broken by things and never recover. I have worked with not many people in my life, but I've worked with a couple of people that finally recovered, but an event had happened in their life, a major event, and they had to go out on medical leave, then they had to go out on extended leave and things like that, and when you would see them, they were a broken spirit, just devastated, you know. And it's hard to recover from those things, isn't it? So it's a true statement that a broken spirit, you know, a broken spirit is brought about a lot of times by the sorrows of the heart. But to counteract that is having that merry heart, those good things that we can harbor inside that we can reflect back upon to help bring us out of all that, you see. And so here in verse 15 he says, all the days of the afflicted are evil, but he that is of a merry heart hath a continual feast. Now, the afflicted is talking about here, when we see this, about the happiness of the wicked. Those things that actually people are trying to obtain to make them happy, Solomon said, is nothing but vanity and vexation of the spirit, are they? That's all they are. It's temporal happiness that's short-lived and will pass away. But a merry heart hath a continual feast. Reckon, if you want to use the figurative term, and I realize flesh and blood don't inherit the kingdom of heaven, but knowing what we know about heaven and being at the throne of God, which heart will we have? A broken heart or a merry heart? The rich man that passed away and wound up in torment, what kind of heart he's got? Probably a broken heart, isn't it? Okay? So this is what it's talking about here. And there are other passages of Scripture that we can talk about in this, and we could go on with it for a while. I just thought about one that popped in my mind. Brother Leroy Brownlow's book, okay? Some of you probably have it. Several books that he's written, and his book is based on chapter 17, verse 22 of Proverbs, okay? See, sometimes it works. Sometimes it'll, stir it up a little bit, Daniel, and shake it, A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth to the bones. So, there's a lot of lessons in here about the importance of happiness and being happy. And we're going to talk about obtaining happiness. Okay, here down toward the end of this lesson, okay? We have here, let's see, did I jump too many slides? Let me go back, look, see, make sure I didn't jump a slide. No, okay, all right, okay, I thought I had double clicked. Okay, we have here a tree shaped like a man's face, don't we? One side of it's green and pretty. The other side of it is kind of, it's dried away, wilted, just a bunch of old sticks hanging off, That when you look at it, you really don't look at that picture, do you? You look at where the greenage and the pretty is. Well, that's what we're going to talk about tonight. There's two sides to this thing of happiness. And we need to take a look at maybe what side of the tree that we want to be on in this. You see, we're going to use the branches of the dried up tree what constitutes the happiness of the world, okay? And we're going to look at this side of it, what constitutes the happiness of the righteous, okay? And so there are different attributes, if you will, that constitute both. One of the things we find about the happiness of the wicked, it's limited to this life. It's limited to this life. By no means is this thought exhaustive, okay? I just hit a few verses on this. Psalm 17:14. Let's turn over and see what it says. Notice what he says here about children of the world is what's under in consideration here. Worldliness is under consideration here. Prosperity that the world has, and the seed of wickedness. From men which are thy hand, O Lord, from men of the world which have their portion in this life, and whose belly thou hast filled with thy hid treasures, they are full of children, and leave the rest of their substance to their babes. In other words, God has prospered them just like he has other people had. And we know the Bible teaches us the rain falls on who? The just and unjust. But what separates them? It has to do with appreciation and thoughtfulness, doesn't it? We find in Luke chapter 16 and verse 25. I'd like to say by no means is this exhaustive. Notice what it says here. Luke 16 and verse 25. But Abraham, and we know this is about the rich man and Lazarus that we're going to come back to. But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime receivest thou good things. And that's what, the psalmist has under consideration in Psalms chapter 17 about the receiving of good things. And notice what it says here. And likewise Lazarus evil things, but now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. So was his blessings, if you will, were they temporal or were they permanent? They were short-lived, wasn't they? They were short-lived. They were short-lived blessings. So, and there's other passages of Scripture that we could talk about that the happiness of the wicked is limited to this life. But yet, we're not limited to just the things, are we? We have hope in the Lord, don't we? Psalms 146 and verse 5. Turn over there with me. Psalms 146 and verse 5. Our hope is not limited to this world, is it? What is hope anyway? It's desire with expectation, isn't it? Desire with expectation. Here, the things that we desire in this life, we have somewhat expectations of it, but does it fulfill our real desires? Maybe for a day, maybe for a month until that first payment rolls around and we look out the door and say, oh my word, what have I done? So that joy just went out the window, didn't it? But our hope is in the Lord. It's a hope that is out there. It's a desire that we have. It's an expectation. That's not hollow and vain is what I'm trying to say in this, okay? What did I say? Psalms 146 and verse 5. Happy, there's that word, is he that hath the God of Jacob for his help, whose hope is in the Lord, which made heaven, the earth, the sea, and all therein, which keepeth truth forever. Our hope's not vain. Our expectation it's not vain, is it? Our hope is alive. Our hope is active, and our hope is in the Lord. Maybe that's why that tree on that side is green, right? It's got hope happening. Jared?
Makes me think of Romans 12:12. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. And the joy and the hope is that by faith, we know it's going to happen by the promises of God. It's not we're hoping as a chance. We're hoping that it is secured, is basically is what this hope is.
Right, exactly. It's not going to be vain, is it? You know, it's not going to wear out before we get it paid for, and it winds up at Bubba Siebens, is it? And we still got the payment, and he got the junk, right? You know, and that happens more often than what people think, right? But that's vain hope, isn't it? Our hope is alive, it's active. The hope of the wicked is derived from their wealth, isn't it? That's where their hope is, or their happiness is derived from their wealth. Psalms 52 and verse 7, I'm running out of time already on this. I didn't think I had that much prepared. I got to move on, so I may quit reading some of the scripture here and kind of move on with the lesson. Where am I at? Psalms 52 and verse 7. What it's talking about here, Doeg was a false prophet, false leader of the Canaanite world. So what David's doing here, he's prophesizing about his destruction, okay? I'm just going to read verse 7. Lo, this is a man that made not God his strength, but trusted in the abundance of his riches, and strengthened himself in his wickedness. So this is what was going on here. But David said in verse 6, the righteous shall see and fear and shall laugh at him. It's vain, isn't it? He's put his wealth and his strength in what? In his tangible goods, hasn't he? He sure has. Our happiness is derived from God. Daniel, something just come on the computer. Can you clear that for me, please? And y'all excuse me, while I'm thinking about it, Daniel, the thing keeps popping up when I turn it on. It wants us to go ahead and download Windows 11. In a couple of months, they're going to quit supporting it. And I've been clicking no. Okay. Okay, it's clear now. I appreciate that. Our happiness is derived from God. Psalm 63 and verse 5. I'm going to begin at verse 4. I will bless thee while I live. I will lift up my hands in thy name. My soul shall be satisfied as with marrow and fatness, and my mouth shall praise thee with joyful lips. When I remember thee upon my bed and meditate on thee in the night watch, because thou hast been my help, therefore in the shadow of thy wing I will rejoice. So where is our expectation? Where is our happiness derived from? Well, the psalmist David here is talking about the shadow of his wing, isn't he? And that's something to stop and think about. Vain pleasure. And I'm going to have to kind of move this on a little bit. If you want to copy these slides, you can let me know. I could email them to you. I can zip them for you. Pleasantness in nature. Happiness of the righteous constitutes pleasantness in nature, doesn't it? And I am going to turn that to Proverbs chapter 3, okay? Because I think it's worth reading to what he says here in Proverbs chapter 3. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 13. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding, for the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and gain thereof in gold. So what's treasures in the Lord? Wisdom, isn't it? The knowledge of the Lord. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, isn't it? It's greater than all gain that you can get, that he says here. She is more precious than rubies, and all things that thou canst desire are not to be compared to her. There's no comparison here to the happiness of the righteous, is there? Compared to the happiness of the world. Her ways, verse 17, are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. The wealth of the world, really, how much peace do people get with that? Not a lot of peace with it, is it? Because it's a steady chase and rat race, isn't it? Because there's all kind of things that go on with the upkeep of the treasures of the world, isn't it? It's a never-ending thing. And I might pick it on boaters because I like to ride in a boat too, even though I don't want one. I'll ride one to death, okay? Just to let y'all know that. In case you got a boat, I'll ride it to death for you, okay? But the old acronym about boat is bring on another 1,000, isn't it? When you take it to the shop, what do you always hear it? Well, we found this wrong with it. What it going to cost? Well, it's another 1,000. That's where they numbers start, okay? Boat, bring on another 1,000. There's always something, isn't it? But that's not the way it is with the Lord, is it? There's pleasure and peace in the Lord. We talked for just a minute and made brief mentions of two characters that you would find maybe distressed out. Not very happy, if you would, and it's Paul and Silas, isn't it? They had done a good work by casting out the spirit of divination in the downsult. They were arrested and beaten, thrown in prison. Okay? What were they doing there? Okay? What had the wicked done to them? They had upset the wicked in their gain, hadn't they? And it made the wicked mad because they wasn't really getting any satisfaction out of that. They were getting monetary gain to feed the belly temporarily to get satisfaction. But then after 3 or 4 hours, what the belly wants you to do again? Very good, you hear me? Eat. All right, okay. Well, what was Paul and Silas doing? In spite of what the wicked had done. Did they have pleasure on things that were pleasant and the things that were good? Let's just look and see what it says. And at midnight, Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises unto God, and the prisoners heard them. That don't sound like a miserable bunch of folks, does it? Sounds like they were rejoicing. They were looking at it from the standpoint, hey, I'm here in this prison. It's going to give me an opportunity to preach the Lord, isn't it? And so they chose that happiness, didn't they? That's in a bad spot. You're talking about between a rock and a hard spot. That's one of them, isn't it? But what were they doing in bad times? They were singing and praying, giving God praises at midnight. And we stop and think too about the farmer in Luke chapter 12. He had an abundant crop, didn't he? And I'm going to turn there. And you could tell by the starting tone of it as Jesus speaks this parable that he was happy. Man, look at this bumper crop I got. Look at what I'm going to have to do. Look at all this. Well, you would have thought that somewhere down the line, living under the oath, that he would have took some of that grain and maybe went to the temple and given an offering to the Lord, wouldn't you? But he was trying to find satisfaction in what he had done, not acknowledging where the prosperity had come from. But what happened to him along about verse 20? He died, didn't he? His soul was required of him, and Jesus said, then whose things these will be? So, with his prosperity, it was short-lived, wasn't it? It was short-lived, and that's the way it is. Life is fleeting. John the Revelator said, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, write, blessed are the dead which die in the Lord, yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. Revelation 14:13, KJV. So, reckon what the attitude is of those that have died in the Lord and those that have died in vain. Reckon one has a happy heart, a happy countenance, and one doesn't. One has a broken spirit, and one doesn't. Who makes that determination in all this? You say, well, God does. Well, no. God God judges in the end, right? But who makes the determination in this? We do, don't we? It's in our hands to be happy, isn't it? To be happy. And you know, when we think about being happy, we know that when we look at the other side of the coin, that there's no rest for the wicked, is there? There's no rest. You know, when in Luke chapter 16, when Lazarus passed away, he went to a place of rest and peace, didn't he? But we find on the same token, because what side of the tree you reckon Lazarus was really on? He was on the righteous side, wasn't he? Notice what it said here about no rest for the wicked. And in hell he lifted up his eyes, being in torment. Wow. I don't have to move on. And you know, we like to think of, fresh water, don't we? You know, having our thirst quenched and how nice it is. And, you know, there are wells that are set in beautiful settings and you draw that water out, which I've done in my lifetime. And it's so good coming out of the ground. It's so fresh and it's so cool, isn't it? Well, you know, that's the way happiness is, because it's drawn from the well where we don't thirst anymore. Notice what Isaiah said. Behold, God is my salvation, I will trust. And not be afraid, for the Lord Jehovah is my strength and my song. He also is my salvation. Therefore with joy, remember one of the definitions we said about happiness, therefore with my joy shall you draw water out of the wells of salvation. Drawing water out of the wells of salvation brings about happiness, doesn't it? Notice what else it says here about these wells. And there's an old-fashioned well, probably somewhat in the nature of probably what the woman at the well and Jesus was looking at maybe in that time with that order, something of this nature. Notice what Jesus said about the water of the well of the world. John 14:13, Jesus answered and said unto her, whosoever drinketh this water shall thirst again. The world continually is making us thirsty, isn't it? Chasing after wealth makes you thirsty because it's never enough, is it? You know, it's short-lived. It's always the next gadget, the next biggest thing, the next level what. It's on and on and on because the satisfaction is short-lived. So it is with this water of the world, isn't it? The satisfaction that we get short-lived, isn't it? And that's what Jesus is telling her. But on the other hand, now I'm going to have to walk over because I can't even see that. On the other hand, but whosoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. But the water that I shall give him will become of him a fountain of water springing forth unto everlasting life. So you don't have to thirst, John 4:14, do you? You can have water of everlasting life to never thirst again. 1 Peter 4:12. Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trials which is to try you, has so some strange thing had happened unto you. But rejoice insomuch as ye are partakers of Christ's suffering, that when his glory shall be revealed, ye may be glad also with exceedingly joy. And that's kind of an overview of the Bible versus the goodness of God and the wickedness of the devil, isn't it? It's short-lived. The trials and tribulations of this life is short-lived, aren't they? It's not going to last forever. Nothing lasts forever on this earth. The important thing is that we suffer and be partakers of Christ's suffering and be happy about it. One day there'll be exceedingly joy, won't there? And this is how you begin the journey, isn't it? You know, when you hear the Word of God, you begin to believe, don't you? And repentance is a change of heart, change of life, change of attitude, change of mind, and you go in a different direction, and then you confess that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and you buried with him in the watery grave of baptism, right? To arise a new creature in Christ Jesus. That puts you on the road to true happiness, doesn't it? Notice about the Ethiopian eunuch. When they came up out of the water, the Spirit of the Lord carried Philip away, and the eunuch saw him no more, But it went on his way, what? Rejoicing. You know, we kind of started this lesson with the word happiness, which constitutes joy, doesn't it? It looks like we're going to close it out with rejoicing. And this is what it takes to be on that side of the tree that shines bright. It's green, it's luscious, it has pretty leaves, it's healthy. Brother Clem Thurman, the old gentleman, he's passed on now, he and his brother that started the Gospel Minutes back years and years ago, had an article one time about life. I never will forget it. I got a copy of it somewhere and all that stuff at the house. And what the article was about, he says, life will do you one or two ways. You can let it hone you razor sharp that'll slice right through anything like a hot knife through butter. Never faze you. Or it'll make you dull, rusty, and cruddy, and everything you touch, it tears and pulls. He had a lesson about that anyway. And I had never forgot that, and that's very true, isn't it? And so, you know, we find that we have a choice in this matter of happiness, don't we? We have a choice in that matter. So that's the conclusion of this, and hopefully we may have got something out of it. Like I say, I'm still not so sure it's got any structure to it, okay? Even after I went through it live. So anyway, Eric, would you lead us in a invitation song? Jeff, would you dismiss us here in just a minute, please?
Number 78, we'll sing first and last. We'll sing. Hark the gentle voice of Jesus calling tenderly.